Hello and welcome back to another EDH deck tech idea. Today we are taking a look at Wildsear, Scouring Maw. This is a 5 mana 6/6 trample wolf, which will give enchantment spells you cast from your hand cascade. That means that you will reveal cards from the top of your library until you hit a non-land card with CMC less than the cast spell, and you may cast a revealed non-land card this way without paying its mana cost. This extremely angry wolf is in Gruul colors, so this is how we are going to win the game. We want to cascade into a bunch of powerful spells, which will give us a huge advantage, and then swing with Wildsear for the win. Cards that we either want to cast or cascade into are, for example, Gratuitous Violence, a 5 mana enchantment, and if a source you control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that damage to that permanent or player instead. This powerful replacement effect will make you deal a ton of damage, which can be extremely dangerous if you have a powerful trampling creature in the command zone. You want to hit or cast Berserker's Onslaught, a 5 mana enchantment, and attacking creatures you control have double strike. If you have a damage doubling effect on the battlefield and you are able to connect with Wildsear, you can kick out a player in one turn. A little bit cheaper is Ancestral Mask, a 3 mana enchantment aura. An enchanted creature gets +2/+2 for each other enchantment on the battlefield. It's definitely worth mentioning that Ancestral Mask counts every enchantment on the battlefield, so also your opponent's enchantments, which can pump up Wildsear to a 1-hit KO very quickly. We play Fiery Emancipation, a 6 mana enchantment, and if a source you control will deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals triple that damage to that permanent or player instead, which is another damage tripling effect. A little bit cheaper is Hydra's Growth, a 3 mana enchantment, and when it enters the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on enchanted creature. At the beginning of your upkeep, double the number of +1/+1 counters on enchanted creature. There is a little bit of a +1/+1 counter theme in this deck to pump up Wildsear, so Hydra's Growth can do a lot of work. And we play Eldrazi Conscription, an 8 mana tribal enchantment, and enchanted creature gets +10/+10 and has Trample and Annihilator. Trample is not needed if you're casting it onto Wildsear, but Annihilator too, and +10/+10 is definitely worth having. But we don't want to focus Wildsear with too many of our enchantments. We also want enchantments on the battlefield that aren't too reliant on a creature. So we want to cascade into Dragon Cultist, a 5 mana legendary enchantment background, and commander creatures you own have, at the beginning of your end step, if a source you control dealt 5 or more damage this turn, create a 4/4 red dragon creature token with flying. Being able to create additional tokens is really helpful if we want to keep constantly swinging with Wildsear to have a few blockers, and casting another enchantment will give us even more value with Wildsear. We play Tavern Brawler, a 3 mana legendary enchantment background, and commander creatures you own have, at the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library. This creature gets +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is that card's mana value, and you may play that card this turn. This is another great Anthem effect that will pump up Wildsear, with also getting additional card advantage. And keep in mind that you may play that card, which means that you can also play lands with this effect. Raised by Giants, a 6 mana legendary enchantment, and commander creatures you own have base power and toughness 10/10 and are giants in addition to their other types. Last but not least, we play Passionate Archaeologist, a 2 mana legendary enchantment background, and commander creatures you own have, whenever you cast a spell from exile, this creature deals damage equal to that spell's mana value to target opponent. I can recommend to kick out a player 1 by 1, as you will most likely do it with commander damage by dealing damage with Wildsear. And Passionate Archaeologist can help you along the way while you're cascading into other spells with Wildsear's ability to reduce the life total of another opponent, so you don't necessarily have to win with commander damage, because you will ping for a lot of damage with Passionate Archaeologist. Due to the fact that we care about enchantment spells and also want other powerful creatures on the battlefield with very helpful effects, we play a lot of different god creatures. Which is why we play Xenagos, God of Revels, a 5 mana 6/5 with Indestructible, and as long as your devotion to red and green is less than 7, Xenagos isn't a creature. At the beginning of combat on your turn, another target creature you control gains haste and gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is that creature's power. That means that, for example, if you cast Fiery Emancipation and cascade into Xenagos, you can kick out a player within 1 turn with Wildsear. Purphoros, Bronze Blooded, a 5 mana 7/6 with Indestructible, and as long as your devotion to red is less than 5, Purphoros isn't a creature. Other creatures you control have haste, and for 3 mana you may put a red creature card or an artifact creature card from your hand onto the battlefield and sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. This powerful god has a very strong stat line with 7/6, and in addition to that he also enables haste for our creatures, which might surprise our opponents out of nowhere. We also play Clothis, God of Destiny, a 3 mana 4/5 with Indestructible, and as long as your devotion to red and green is less than 7, Clothis isn't a creature, and at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, exile target card from a graveyard. This can definitely help in a lot of different matchups. And if it was a land card, you can add red or green mana, otherwise you gain 2 life and Clothis deals 2 damage to each opponent, which might help you stabilize and work all of your opponent's life totals down. To make sure that we never run out of gas, we also play the typical Carddraw engines in enchantment decks, like Eidolon of Blossom, a 4 mana 2/2, and when it or another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. Enchantress's Presence, a 3 mana enchantment, and whenever you cast an enchantment spell, draw a card. Setessan Champion, a 3 mana 1/3, and whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on it and draw a card. Verduran Enchantress, a 3 mana 0/2, and whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you may draw a card. Argothian Enchantress, a 2 mana 0/1 with Shroud, and whenever you cast an enchantment spell, draw a card. And last but not least, Ficus in the Thicket, a 5 mana enchantment, and when it enters, put X +1/+1 counters on target creature, where X is that creature's power. And at the beginning of your end step, draw 2 cards if you control the creature with the greatest power or tied for the greatest power. You want to win more? You get it. Nyxborn Behemoth, a 12 mana 10/10, and this spell costs X less to cast, where X is the total mana value of non-creature enchantments you control. It has Trample, and for 2 mana, sacrificing another enchantment, it gets Indestructible until end of turn. Nyxborn Behemoth is a very powerful alternative win con in this deck, as it can protect itself. It is an enchantment creature, so you can also use it to cascade into another enchantment spell. And a 10/10 with Trample with a lot of damage doubling effects in this deck is a huge threat to your opponents. And a great protection enchantment is Asceticism. A 5 mana enchantment, and creatures you control can't be the targets of spells or abilities your opponents control. Furthermore, if your opponents pull a board wipe, you can pay 2 mana to regenerate target creature. This powerful protection enchantment will protect all of your creatures, and it can also cascade into another enchantment with Wildsear on the battlefield. And last but not least, we play Nalfeshni, a 6 mana 4/6 with flying, and whenever you cast a spell from exile, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. If it's a permanent spell, the copy gains haste, and at the beginning of the next end step, sacrifice this permanent. Of course, it will most likely happen that you will cascade into one of your permanent spells, like enchantments or other creatures, but even if those effects just stick around for 1 turn, it can be enough to have a very powerful benefit from it. Alright guys, these were a few cards that I will play in Wildsear, Scouring Maw. Let me know down in the comments below which cards you would add to the deck, which legendary creature I shall feature next, and then I would say, see you in the next one. Goodbye guys.